Dear Mama, from the moment I discovered we were expecting, there was a part of me that didn't want to change. You may not believe me, but I clearly remember that night. My husband was going to a work event, and I'd made plans with myself to have some sushi and indulge in a glass of white. I can recall the hilarious back and forth in my head, like that version of me, pre-kids, that was rebelling and didn't want to change. Then, there was a beautiful other part of me that reminded me that this is what I wanted, and what if? What if I waited to indulge in that delicious meal and trusted this gift? That moment was the first time I'd realized that resistance. I'd resisted and pushed through for so long, and that voice was so strong within me. This voice was the grief, whispering a little message of what was to come, and not wanting to let go of this part of me that I had already gotten comfortable with. Why was this such a large detour and worry? I'd been a mommy before. A parentified child journey had already primed me for this moment, right? Pregnancy is a weird thing. One moment you feel fine, and the next moment you feel like you're going to die and your partner is feeding you bananas in bed. It's the only time in your life that something is happening, and 90% of it is absolutely outside of your control, and all you can do is trust. Even though we were expecting our firstborn when I was 37 years old, pregnancy was quite easy for me. The months came and went, and soon we discovered we were having a girl. This was surprising, as I felt like we were having a boy. Or maybe it was my subconscious wishing we'd have a boy, because it knew it would be easier. At 5 months pregnant, we'd moved from the Netherlands to Belgium, and everything was new. No friends, no comfort zone, no community, no network, new doctors, new opportunities, all still to be sought out. After 36 hours of labor, our daughter entered this world. She was perfect, and I was struggling. My body had just gone through some serious trauma, and I was trying to feed the baby with my body, and this baby's organs were all trying to learn how to start up and live in a world outside of the womb. It was challenging, to say the least. In those weeks after, I'd cried more than I'd ever cried before. My husband had recommended that I go talk to someone, and I found out I had the baby blues. Looking back, do you want to know what I would have diagnosed myself with? Grief, identity changes, many questions about my career, being in a new city with no connections or network, having no role model as a mom. I felt lost, and at times a bit helpless, and I didn't know all of this at the time. I felt like my childhood and all frames of reference of how I was parented were downloaded into my being, and that was a very uneasy feeling. I dove deep into mindfulness and neuroplasticity with hopes to expand my heart and my mind. I read a lot with the hopes of coming up with a frame of reference on what I wanted motherhood to look like for me. With no one to turn to, and no one validating what I was going through. Also, my relationship with my husband struggled, as he had no idea what I was experiencing. I felt so vulnerable, so rushed, so alone, so confused. Yet meditating provided some comfort in opening up space. This space allowed me to open up to being present to life. My beautiful daughter, who with each passing day, even as an infant, reminded me of myself. I wanted to be a role model, the working mom who shows her kids that women can be leaders inside and outside of the home. Yet as this was not modeled for me, I had to draw up what this looked like from scratch. What a beautiful and terrifying thing. Things got easier as our daughter went off to daycare, and I started studying French and resumed working. A large part of this restlessness remained. Something about my identity had changed, So I went searching and took lots and lots of tests. I still felt so alone, yet I had no idea what was different. Why was I different than anyone else? Why don't we share these struggles with others? My husband and I knew we wanted a second, and we discovered we were expecting around the same time that the world was expecting the arrival of COVID. As we all know, 3 months later, the world came to a halt. Having my own business and working at a prestigious and demanding high school, plus being pregnant and having to watch a toddler, was way too much for me. My husband felt the same, as his line of work was helping governments and businesses with economic aid, so his workload increased as well. It was during this time that we were really both stressed and found ourselves developing our own coping mechanisms. Although the lockdowns were a struggle, it did allow me to see my daughter in a different light. I tried to really lean in and to enjoy her beautiful spirit, this leader energy, this freely dancing character who would just break out into dance or movement whenever she heard any kind of tune. She was so vividly present with every moment. It was refreshing, and I started to realize that she was here to teach me something. Our second's due date came and passed, and everyone was wondering when this baby would make an entrance. 1 week after the due date, on the day after my husband's birthday, our second child was born. We chose not to know the sex, but we were happy to discover that we had a son. He was happy and healthy, and due to such a stressful time period, I was so thankful. You know, I want to say that when you have your second, you're a bit more prepared. However, life is a journey and has other things in mind. Life with 2 little ones was a lot to deal with in the beginning. I felt pulled between a daughter who wanted to spend time with me and a son who depended upon me for everything. While I was trying my best to give my kids what they needed, I realized my husband was struggling too. Isn't life bizarre in that way? You struggle with something and years later, your husband struggles with his own version of the same thing? Life is a trip. Looking back, we were both going through our own growth spurts as parents, amplified by our individual childhood traumas and not having role models of the parents we wanted to become. I was going through my own maternescence and my husband paternescence. To discover what I wanted deep down, I had to start listening to myself. Parenthood is a difficult time to try and listen, well, for the obvious reasons. And at the same time, parenthood, if you're open to the discovery, can be a time of awakening. I realized that my upbringing made me easily triggered and feeling emotionally immature. My family life did not prepare me for having a family. I found that society told me I should know it all about being a mom and look fabulous while doing it. I found that the business world, government, and others expected me to be able to do it all. Work 40 plus hours, be a perfect mom, plus overtime, because hey, things are expensive. I found that society expected me to bounce back to my pre-pregnancy body in 3 or 4 months after delivering. And I found that many said that our kids come first and at our own expense. Through a bunch of experiential learning, I realized that my emotions are valuable. I needed to rid myself of the idea that tears help no one and that anger wasn't pretty. My emotions became data points that needed to be plotted or they were planted deep within me. Through many great books, I realized that space, practice, patience, and continuing the journey are the only things that give me the stamina and strength required to show up day in and day out as a present partner and parent. Through digging deeper, I realized that instead of stepping into agency, I often stepped back as I didn't want to step on any toes. Through a leadership training, I realized that I've always been comfortable working with men because they're more predictable. My feminine side was hiding because it was never nurtured in the business world. nor from the beginning by a mother who neither accepted me nor her own emotions, needs, desires, or wants. As it seemed, femininity wasn't valued. Through diving into my own childhood trauma, I realized I needed to carve a whole new courageous path forward in order to not pass on the crap that was put on my shoulders. Through being present and connecting the dots, I realized that those of us who had to keep the peace and the status quo as kids need control as adults, and this is the recipe for disaster as parents. Through discovering myself, I realized that I needed to be an active participant in my marriage, and we need to work on things in order to avoid the elephant from coming into the room. Through investing in me, I realized that I can hold both my children and myself. By discovering the importance of my role, I realized everything I do, from self-care to stress management, my children are watching and will embody that as their go-to in the ways that they live their life. Through being grateful and aware, I have a newfound appreciation for the female body and all it can do, yet we continue to treat it like garbage because it doesn't fit someone else's ideal. That was a busy year, and we look forward to a break, our annual summer vacation, visiting my husband's region and family in Italy. While we were staying at my in-laws that year, my mother-in-law unexpectedly passed away. As the proverbial house of cards collapsed, I searched for the right words to tell my 2- and 4-year-old kids. The whole family came up with their own coping mechanisms, and mine was to take care of others and not myself. I gave, and I gave, and I gave. Upon returning home from our vacation, I collapsed with no energy, no drive, no feeling, and I knew deep down into my bones that I needed to take some time off, or I would burn out. As I nursed myself back to health, I dug in deep, reading books that nourished my soul as a woman, daughter, sister, friend, partner, mother, and human. And through all of this, I realized that my mother-in-law was a giver too. She gave and gave and gave to others, and she found joy in it. Although the joy may have been a positive experience for her, made her feel good. Like most women, she didn't always, if much at all, give to herself. This made me realize we were connected, and that I could put my foot down and stop this for myself and for all the other women out there. From this, I realized how important it was to take care of myself, for myself, and also because my children will model their self-care after how I took care of myself. From that point forward, I dug in deeper. I read more. I developed what my leadership was as a mom, in diving deeper into experiential learning. I met my inner children, especially the young ones. Magic happens when we meet them, hold them, and play with them. It allows us to see the beauty in childhood and opens us up to seeing our children a lot more clearly. It also allowed me to step into the fun part of being a mother. My children brought out a unique presence in me that I never knew. Maybe that's because I had to grow up too fast. I'm not so sure. So, dear Mama, yes, motherhood changes you, reshapes your identity, and how you navigate that rebirth of sorts is similar to a butterfly. Hear me out. Once a caterpillar is ready, it goes into its cocoon and rests until it's ready to emerge as a butterfly. This process cannot be rushed. If one cuts the cocoon, the butterfly's growth will be stunted. Yet, if it is given the time, it emerges as a beautiful butterfly, ready to roam the world in its fullest form. So, dear Mama, it starts with you. Dig deep, discover yourself, and your many identities in this wonderful world. These are the seeds that grow. Plant those seeds within you so you can continue to grow every day and so your children can flourish. They say when a baby is born, a mother is born. So be that beautiful butterfly and spread those gorgeous wings to fly among all the others, showing off all of the beauty of who it is to be you.